Welcome to the week that was, but we mostly wish it wasn't, for the week ending November 21st, 2025. This is a weekly roundup of the highlights and lowlights of campus anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. This week I had about 45 stories to choose from. If something is happening in your neck of the woods, please be sure to let me know. I'm your host, Andrew Pessin. I am a professor. Please don't hate me. For more about me and my work, visit andrewpessin.com. For all the details of today's stories and loads more stories, follow me on X at Andrew Pessin. Start with a quick announcement. I will soon be launching the Institute for the Critical Study of Anti-Zionism, a scholarly enterprise aimed to document and expose the sordid origins and malevolent evolution of these various ideologies of anti-Zionism, starting from the protocols of the Elders of Zion through the Nazis, the Soviets, the Muslim Arabs, and the Western progressives. I'm currently seeking interested collaborators and possible sponsors, so if that's you, please do get in touch. All right, let's get to the news. We start with some better news this week. Texas has declared the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, and the Muslim Brotherhood both to be foreign terrorist organizations and transnational criminal organizations. The federal government is contemplating doing the same. And meanwhile, this week it was revealed that CARE has been sending $1,000 checks to students who got disciplined for causing anti-Semitic mayhem on campuses over the past couple of years. Plus, there's further evidence that CARE has been misusing millions of dollars of federal funding and hiding their political activities. And third, in the better news department this week, Colombia this week rejected 3 different divestment proposals that had been put before it because apparently one divestment proposal was not enough. Back to the ordinary news. Harvard decided to break its hiring freeze recently to hire yet another anti-Israel professor in the Middle East Studies Department, a person with a long history of supporting boycott, divestment, and sanctions, BDS, libeling Israel in various ways, including accusations of genocide, and so on. Also this week, Harvard University students will be voting on yet another referendum because they seem to need to do this every couple of months or at least a couple of times a year. Another anti-Israel referendum calling on the university to disclose its divestments and relationships to Israel and divest from them and so on. Princeton University, not to be outdone. There is a professor we reported recently on there teaching a new anti-Israel course called Gender, Reproduction, and Genocide that is comparing Gaza to the Holocaust and accusing Israel of attacking the, quote, biological and social capacity of Palestinians to exist. Well, this professor, it turns out, had previously been suspended from Hebrew University in Israel for her anti-Semitism. Uh, she was even questioned in a criminal investigation on suspicion of incitement, and she now has secured a comfortable position at one of the world's most prestigious academic institutions. Speaking of yet another prestigious academic institution, the Ivy Leagues are filling the news this week. Cornell University. Most Cornell graduate students are required to join the local union there. Well, that union is now voting on a BDS resolution that endorses the right to resist, quote, by any means necessary, including armed resistance. So what that means is that in order to get an advanced degree at Cornell University, apparently, you have to endorse the mass slaughter of Jewish civilians. Georgetown University is enjoying a faculty-run Gaza lecture series now beginning its second year because 1 year was not enough. The second annual Gaza lecture series began in September, consisting of 10 lectures because 9 or 8 or 7 are not enough that are scheduled through March 2026. The series welcomes what they call distinguished academics to discuss the Israeli occupation of Gaza and concerns about free speech concerning Palestine on college campuses. This lecture series, organized by faculty from 6 different Georgetown programs, including the Center for Muslim Christian Understanding, the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies, the African Studies program, the Department of Theology and Religious Studies, Department of English, because that's relevant, and Georgetown University in Qatar. So, in other words, the Qatar campus is co-sponsoring this lecture series. Yet one more example of the flowing of Arab money into our universities and affecting the curriculum. ISCAP, wonderful program fighting anti-Semitism, has been documenting the flow of Arab money, including Qatar money, into campuses. So it's important to follow them. At City College in New York City this past week, there was a quite outrageous interfaith event. Normally, you think of these as a sort of kumbaya moment, people putting arms around each other and stressing what they have in common more than how they differ. But in this particular one, the imam participating went on a verbal rampage against a Zionist who was president and then led a 100 student walkout, most of the students wearing keffiyehs, to just walk out of the event. Didn't seem so kumbaya-ish. University of Michigan wanting to get in on the action. The student government had a BDS vote this past week as well, which passed yet again, and one cannot keep count of the number of BDS votes that have occurred at the University of Michigan over the past 10 years. Interesting news out of UC Berkeley. There was a panel about why Israel won, a panel on October 7th in the wider war. Sounds like a pro-Israel leaning panel. And of course, there was a protest with a large number of people opposing it. But apparently, Berkeley Law School sent an email prior to the event to Berkeley Law Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP, the campus group that organized the protest, and warned them that they would report demonstrators to the state bar if they were found to violate time, place, and manner regulations. The students, of course, complained about this, but that amounts to a complaint that they have to follow the rules that govern everybody else. And apparently it was successful. They had their protest, they followed the rules, and everybody moved on. In the Jews are our own worst enemies department, usually a separate department, I'm squeezing it in here, Hofstra University on Long Island, their Jewish Studies program is actually now offering an SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine activism course under the heading of Jewish Studies. This seems to be an infiltration, in my humble opinion. Turning to the international arena, busy as always in Canada, up north, Concordia University, the phrase kill all Jews was found scrawled on a bathroom wall. McGill University, multiple departments there took place in a strike for Palestine this past week, and activists interrupted many, many different classrooms. There are videos circulating if you want to see some of those. In Toronto, the ToughSeek organization, which is a self-described Jewish civil rights group, has urged the Canadian federal government to designate Students for Justice in Palestine as a terrorist entity, citing one of the most recent events. There was, in the last couple of weeks, a private pro-Israel event actually off campus related to Toronto Metropolitan University. A number of anti-Israel activists barged in, breaking glass, and assaulted the people at the presentation. So this is the immediate inspiration for this request to designate SJP as a terrorist organization. In the United Kingdom, anti-Israel campaigns on campuses there now regularly include the phrase "no Zionists here," aiming to get at Zionist-free campuses. For those not in the know, anti-Zionism has always been a tool used to persecute and expel and ultimately genocide the Jews. So it is happening in the United Kingdom and also frequently here in the United States. Also in the United Kingdom, the Oxford Union, which has been very busy in our reports over the last couple of months, so the Oxford Union went to host former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert. He was due to speak there, but protesters blocked the entrance. Some jumped the fence. The event ended up being canceled. Of course, Olmert is a very left-leaning person who was very sympathetic towards Palestinian interests, and even he gets canceled because he is an Israeli, or he is a Jew, or both. The student protesters proudly displayed their blood-red hands, referring back to the famous lynching incident in the early 2000s, with big smiles on their faces. And it turned out subsequently that the students leading this campaign were scholarship students at Oxford. Also, Oxford Union, busy week, passed a resolution this week declaring that Israel was a greater threat to world peace than, for example, Iran, which funded numerous terrorist proxies and composing a ring of fire around Israel and essentially supported the start of the October 7th war. At the London School of Economics this week, there was a large protest of an event featuring the DINA Project, which is an organization that documents and pursues crimes of sexual violence by Hamas. So apparently Jews are not allowed to complain about being victims of sexual violence there. And not to be outdone, in Scotland, the University of Glasgow, a rector there accused Israel this past week of harvesting Palestinian organs. There were some moves in the legal arena this week, the lawsuits. University of Pennsylvania, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission claims that the University of Pennsylvania is flouting subpoenas in the anti-Semitism investigation that is ongoing there, claiming that Penn has refused to hand over discrimination complaints by Jewish employees. Columbia University, the subject of some anti-Semitism. I've lost track a little bit in lawsuits, but a judge in New York in one of those lawsuits told the lawyers for Columbia that anti-Israel activists that were protesting in the encampment, that those protests were permeated with anti-Semitism. He said, quote, "You guys call it anti-Zionism. The reality is there was a lot of anti-Semitism taking place there." And the University of California, a blow to the forces of goodness. A federal judge has ruled that the Trump administration cannot withhold funds or demand payment from the University of California system concerning anti-Semitism and civil rights violations there. There's some busy stuff in the K through 12 department this week, but in the interest of time, we'll move on. I'll just mention in the students openly endorsing violence department, Columbia University, again, some anti-Israel students there posted a pretty clearly terror supporting graphic featuring an image of Sinwar, number of assault rifles, praising resistance and calling to globalize the Intifada. So that's the news, unfortunately. Tune in next week to see what fresh horrors next week might bring. Again, I'm your host, Andrew Pessin at andrewpessin.com, hoping everyone manages to keep it together until next week.